Have you ever thought about how EMFs may be affecting your health? In today's video, we're going to go over electromagnetic frequencies and the issues that may arise when being exposed to too much of it. We're also going to go over how to suppress your exposure to EMFs and the importance of doing so. So to start off, we're going to be talking about what EMFs are. EMFs are electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic frequencies, and they're also known as an invisible energy wave that is emitted by electronic devices such as phones, Wi-Fi routers, and also power lines. There are two main types of EMFs. There are low-frequency EMFs from household devices such as power lines, and there are also high-frequency EMFs from technologies like X-rays and wireless devices. As our use of these devices grow, however, so does our exposure, so this should be raising concerns about potential health risks. So now I'm going to share with you guys a very disturbing link that I found while doing my research on EMFs and why it should concern you. So let's start off by talking about why pregnant women should minimize their EMF exposure. Emerging evidence suggests that prenatal EMF exposure may actually contribute to an increased risk of neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism spectrum disorder, also known as ASD, as well as being linked to oxidative stress, DNA changes, and cellular damage, which could interfere with fetal brain development. Some of the key findings that I found in my research was from a 2017 study published in the Journal of Scientific Reports, found that children born to mothers with high EMF exposure during pregnancy exhibited a higher likelihood of developing autistic traits. The developing brain is particularly vulnerable during pregnancy, and EMFs may disrupt normal cell signaling and also increase inflammatory responses. So now I'm going to discuss how oxidative stress is impacted by high EMF exposure. Research published in Bioelectromagnetics highlights how EMFs can induce oxidative stress, which leads to the body's overwhelming ability to neutralize free radicals. This oxidative imbalance can lead to changes in the brain structure as well as its function, increasing the risk of neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism. Alright, so now to get into some of the things that you could be doing right now to be preventing your EMF exposure at home. So the first thing I would recommend here is called an EMF shielding blanket. And what this does is it suppresses the amount of exposure you're getting. So let's say you're on your phone or your iPad or whatever, and it'll suppress the amount of exposure that you're getting from your device that you're on. So some of you may be wondering, well, how do we get rid of some of this EMF exposure? How do we prevent these things from happening in the first place? And that's a great question. We're going to get into some of the main things that you can be doing right now to prevent your EMF exposure. And whether you're pregnant or not, it affects all people. We'll get into that later in the video, and I'm going to explain to you a few things that you can do starting now to fix this problem. These EMF shielding blankets are actually very cost effective, and you can find them on places like Amazon. And I actually did purchase one, and I do feel like they work. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and find one on Amazon. So now to talk about other precautionary measures that you could take if you are worried about your EMF exposure. So another one I would recommend is to limit your device use. So by avoiding maybe phones near your abdomen if you're pregnant, or just near your head. Anywhere near your head, there's a lot of electromagnetic frequency coming off your device, and it could really give you a headache. It could interfere with the electrical system in your body. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of your body is electrical. There's a lot of electrical components to your heart or to your head, and that's why people often, maybe they'll get heart palpitations and they won't know why. We'll get into this in future videos, but maybe they won't understand why they're getting heart palpitations and they're getting headaches frequently. And this could be a reason. I'm not saying that it definitely is the reason, but high EMF exposure can be associated with heart problems and headaches like that. Now, another precautionary measure that you can take is by turning off your Wi-Fi routers. Your Wi-Fi routers are emitting a lot of EMF frequency within your entire house most of the time, or a lot of the time. So it is important that if you are experiencing any of these issues from EMFs, or you're worried if you're pregnant or worried in general about EMF exposure, I would definitely turn off your Wi-Fi routers at night when you're sleeping. You don't need it anyway, and I think that's a big one. And to continue, I think another important one is to avoid sleeping with your phone or with anything emitting a lot of EMFs really close to you. So for me personally, I leave my phone on my table, which is about 10 or 15 feet away from my bed. And I think that is very good because it allows you to not get too close to the EMF radiation, and it also allows for you to sleep better. That's a whole another story of different research I found, is that too much EMF exposure close to bedtime, or just even close to your head when you're sleeping, close to your body in general, could lead to sleeping problems and you'll wake up during the night. Moving on to EMFs and their effect on memory in young people. So let's explore how EMF exposure can impact the developing brains of young people. There have been recent studies that I found that suggest that extended EMF exposure, particularly from smartphones and other electronic devices, can significantly affect memory and cognitive function in children and teens. So we're going to go over how they have effects on memory. Prolonged smartphone use has been linked to decreased spatial memory in teenagers. This is from one of the studies that I was looking at. Another thing I found was that higher EMF exposure can disrupt brain activity, specifically in regions responsible for memory, learning, and concentration. Some of the scientific findings within the research showed that children and teens actually have a higher susceptibility to the harmful effects of EMFs due to their developing brains. EMF exposure can interfere with neural development, leading to cognitive delays or difficulties in school. So some strategies to minimize the exposure, again, would be to limit some screen time for these children and teenagers using a lot of their devices, especially before bedtime, which we discussed, as well as to encourage more outdoor activities and just, in general, face-to-face social interactions. This will definitely help reduce screen time amongst children and teenagers. Another thing that you can also try that has been proven to lower EMF exposure is to use airplane mode, because when your phone is not in airplane mode, it's trying to constantly look for cell towers and just get that EMF from the cell towers, basically. So you can try that, or even hands-free devices during calls to minimize your exposure while using your smartphone. So moving on, I really wanted to show you guys this picture that I found while researching EMFs. So here we can see an image showing the EMF exposure after just a 2-minute phone call. As you can see here, the radiation levels can increase significantly during just a short phone call, which emphasizes the importance of taking steps to reduce exposure from EMFs, such as using a speaker or wired headphones. I personally would suggest using a speaker, so again, just keeping your phone away from your head, just further away from you. And this has been some of the recurring themes that I have seen while doing my research, is that many scientists just recommend keeping your phone away from your head, away from your face in general, as they have been known to causing tumors and just cancer in general that we'll get into very soon. So now to go over some scientific insights. So let's dive a little deeper here into what I found in my research about EMFs, and starting off with cellular communication disruption. What this means is that the cells in your body are not communicating as they should. So this is kind of piggybacking off what I said earlier about how your entire body is electrical, and the cellular communication is key for a lot of things, such as your immune system and just fighting off cancer cells in general. So this is very important, and this is why EMFs are causing a lot of harm and a lot of damage to people without people even realizing it. They think it's because I'm eating meat. The meat I'm eating is causing cancer. No, that's not true. And newsflash, meat actually helps cure cancer. So do not buy into any of that. Anyone that says anything like that, it's a myth. It's false. And many studies have proven that meat actually can help cure cancer. So please do not buy into that if you see that anywhere. Anyway, I digress. So moving on to oxidative stress and inflammation. So this oxidative stress is also known to be caused by EMF exposure, and basically when you have a lot of inflammation, it becomes a little bit easier to get various diseases, including autoimmune disorders. And because of this inflammation, you're actually suppressing your body of vitamin D, and vitamin D is essential to curing autoimmune disorders. So, moving on to potential links to cancer. So, we're going to go over this more in detail on the next slide, but long-term exposure to high levels of EMF have actually been proven to cause different forms of cancer. For now, we're going to go over this circadian rhythm and sleep disruption portion of how EMFs are affecting people. So EMFs can actually disrupt your circadian rhythm, meaning that your body will not sleep the way it should be sleeping normally if there was no EMF exposure. So with EMF exposure, maybe you'll have less REM sleep, or you'll have more light sleep and less deep sleep, which is not good and usually leads to people feeling tired the next day. And I'm sure either you or someone you know has told you recently that they feel tired all the time. They don't know what it is. They're just always tired and they can't figure it out why. Well, this could be, again, this is something that could be the issue to their problem, but it's not guaranteed. I'm just giving you some different things that may be causing your issues. So it doesn't hurt to give it a try. But anyways, with this being said, let's dive deeper into the potential cancer risks and the research that I found while researching EMFs. I definitely saved the best for last here, as most of my research went into the link between EMFs as well as cancer risks. So, to continue, EMF exposure research is showing potential links between chronic exposure and more severe health issues, including cancer and chronic diseases. So I'm going to go over some of the cancer risks real quick. So chronic exposure to EMFs have been associated with an increased risk of developing certain cancers, such as brain tumors, leukemia, and breast cancer. Now, this EMF radiation is actually thought to contribute to cellular mutations and DNA damage, which may lead to cancer development over time. I believe I discussed this earlier, of how damaged cells makes it easier for cancer to come in, as the cells are not communicating properly and the cellular mutations are off. There's something off about it because of these EMF waves. Now, to get into some chronic diseases. Long-term EMF exposure has also been linked to cardiovascular conditions. This includes hypertension as well as heart disease. EMF radiation has been associated with autoimmune disorders as well. I believe I talked about that a little earlier. And this basically occurs when the immune system mistakenly attacks its healthy cells. And again, if you or someone you know is suffering from an autoimmune disorder, vitamin D is the best solution to that problem. To continue, cellular damage. So we're going to talk about the cellular damage which is being caused by these EMFs. EMF exposure has actually been shown to cause oxidative stress, which we discussed earlier more in detail, and this can damage your cellular structures and also contribute to the development of chronic diseases. Chronic exposure may weaken the body's ability to repair itself, which then leads to cellular degeneration and long-term health consequences. Alright, so I'm going to end this video here. I know we went over a lot, and I hope you guys learned something from it. If you did, I please ask that you hit the like button and you comment something down below. If you have any questions, if you just want to comment something, I encourage you to do so. And in addition, if you know anybody that could benefit from this kind of content, I would like for you to share it with them, as my goal is to help as many people as possible. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.